double think. Double think.
Okay. All right, it's December 21st, 2018, the winter solstice. I'm playing fetch with my dog and recording the inaugural Frank America podcast. A lot has happened in 2018, and both for the Frank America brand and for the USA and for the world at large. Lots of interesting things going on. It's a gray sky day where I reside, and I just wanted to do a little chat about what's been cracking in my life. In 2016, I put out a documentary called The Real Truth About Flat Earth, and that had all the basic 101 arguments that you hear about the shape of the earth. Rewatching it is almost like pulling nails for me because the arguments are so well heard at this point and well known. But I re-released it this year after having taken it down and threw in some more good clips. There's a Dan Aykroyd clip from Sneakers, which is pretty funny in there. He's like, we're using the same microphone that NASA used to fake the moon landing from San Bernardino Air Force Base, so if it worked for them, it should work for us. And then also put a clip in there by Jim Carrey talking to, it was either Leno or Letterman or something. He's like, how about that Neil Armstrong guy? Talk about a fish story, and they're buying it. Aykroyd also did that Coneheads landing on the astronauts to the moon. And Carrey also did the Dumb and Dumber clip from that scene in the bar, which was actually the same hotel that Kubrick shot The Shining in. And Jim Carrey's like, what? No way. We landed on the moon. So I thought it was interesting how both of them kind of doubled up in that realm. Just last week, Steph Curry on that podcast with Vince Carter. You guys think we landed on the moon? Nope. And that started a whole nother news cycle comparable to the news cycle Kyrie Irving created, and the one in 2017 and the one in 2016 that B.O.B. created, which are the two. If you look Google's search term flat earth and look at the history of the search term, there's two major spikes. One in 2016 and one in 2017. The first one was B.O.B., the second one was Kyrie. And I imagine if you look again now, there'll be a third one for Steph. Although he didn't talk about the shape of the earth specifically, so it's not quite as tethered. Also, what else is going on? But Steph was, if you look at Steph's apology, basically it was similar to Kyrie's. It was more of a public deference, just kind of being like, yeah, I should be more careful about who I talk to about what, and, I shouldn't say things that would necessarily upset people. And I get that as like just a general public figure policy. But really what's going on is that, they're waging, and when I say they, I just mean, we'll say big media, and maybe even all these people that are kind of haranguing Curry at this moment, or in this case can suffice to be the they, are really knocking people, knocking them off the block of their freedom of speech, and using words like, influence is dangerous, and This all kind of harkens back to Neil Tyson's Comedy Central speech, like, if you want to believe the earth is flat, go right ahead. But as far as your influence here is concerned, like, you know, you could be dangerous to the very democracy that informs our citizenry of this great country type shit. And really what's going on there is they're just like, we don't care if a bunch of no-name people want to say the earth is flat, but if you have influence, then now you're dangerous. So shut up, please. Which is contrary to the nature of freedom of speech, freedom of ideation of thought. And so that's, antithetical to the nature of what this country was founded on, what the USA was founded on. And so I did that doc in 2016, and then I wrote a book of essays in early 2017 called Flatlandia, and I'll leave a link to that below. I've got an audio book of it on YouTube now for free, or you can download the actual physical written PDF from my website. And I'm going to get a print-on-demand version available soon. So if you want to actually print it in a handheld book, it's going to be an option. And, I covered 12 different essays on Flat Earth. And, probably the biggest question that anyone of a reasonable mind would ask is, how could something this big be concealed, and what would the motive be? And I think the motive, by and large, is to promote atheism and a tax scam. NASA's taking down 58 million a day. So in 10 days, that's 580 million. So in a month, that's 500, about 1.6 billion a month for some shoddy green screen trickery. And I think it's important that people realize that NASA, first of all, in Hebrew, nasa means to deceive. Secondly, NASA is kind of the DBA for the original company, which is JPL, or the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And that was started by Jack Parson, who was a known Satanist and kind of black magician, and who made and this may be hearsay, but as the story goes, he made a bet with L. Ron Hubbard of who could start a religion that would make more money. And so currently Scientology and NASA are neck and neck for which religion is making more money: scientism, heliocentric, worship, sun god worship, or Scientology, which is basically like, this whole extragalactic cosmology involving aliens. And one of my friends kind of went through the ringer with Scientology one time, and he said that they ultimately bring you in a room and want you to sign a paper that signs your soul away for like 4.8 billion years. And he was like, I'm going to not sign this part. Like, thanks for the audit, help me work out some old memories. Thanks for the Dianetics training, but I'm going to go ahead and not sign that. And they still call them like once a year. So I just wanted people to know about these JPL origins. And the reason I bring that up is like the Jet Propulsion Laboratory is really good at jet propulsion. That, people that think we didn't go to the moon or that NASA is deceiving us as a tax scam, in my estimation, aren't claiming that there are not real rockets being fired, burning real fuel, that these cats launching off of Cape Canaveral, launch pad, They're really sending, they're good at jet propulsion. They're just not a fucking space exploration company. And that's where the kind of hidden scam and value appears, you know. They've got to fuel the ISS, and they've got to send out satellite probes to Mars. And the other thing that's going on is that NASA's kind of like gradually taking a back step. The head of NASA, I think it was Don Petit, stepped down a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken, and now they have like an interim head. And so kind of in the wake of that, now SpaceX is using the same launch pad that NASA used in Cape Canaveral to do its Falcon rocket launches. And that's kind of what's going on, is like the space hoax, if you will, is being taken off of the shoulders of the government sector and being put on the shoulders of the private sector, namely Elon Musk and SpaceX, and I guess somewhat secondarily also Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic. But that transition is, you know, politically and PR based motivated, because if there need be a fall guy, it's kind of like did you guys ever see The Big Short? And how all those like shitty bonds were packaged together in these things called tranches to make them look like there was less risk, but it was really kind of a bond, shitty bonds in a house of cards. And if you kind of blew on it or take a card out, the whole castle would come down. Well, that's kind of what's going on with the space hoax. Is that like these shitty tranches are this space money. And, you know, these banks got to unload these bad bonds before they collapse. And so that's kind of like what is going on. I feel like they're offloading the risk. NASA's offloading the risk to SpaceX, who, you know, because of the success of Tesla and prior to that PayPal and many of the endeavors that Musk puts on his plate, there's kind of a lower risk in it being offloaded to SpaceX. But when I say offloaded, it's kind of the government's still benefiting from it because SpaceX's explorations and operations are largely subsidized by the government. And forgive my math, but I think to the tune of 1/3, or if not that, 1/4 of operating costs are subsidized. And he's not even an American. So that's kind of what's going on. And then, you know, Elon's saying now, like, we're going to build a civilization on Mars. And if you look at images of Mars, it doesn't look like a terra firma object that can be landed on. It looks like an ethereal, gaseous object, you know, that the ancients called it a wandering star. And this idea that we can go there and land on it might be inaccurate, which would mean that all of the plans and the constructions and the building and the fuel around Musk's claim of Mars 2022, or whatever he picked, would be for naught. That's the NOUGHT, as in it would be futile. So just toiling away, building, spending tax dollars on a project that can't do what it allegedly intends to. So that's that. And so I did that book in 2017, Flatlandia. Came out pretty good. And then this year in 2018, I did a hip-hop album called Magnetic North with this really talented producer named Solomon. And I'll leave a link where you can stream it on YouTube. What's up, Teddy? What's up, T? I'll leave a link where you can stream it on YouTube, or you can buy the digital download from my website or iTunes, or you can stream it on Spotify. You can also order the physical CD from my website. It's $15 because it's $10 for the CD and about $5 to go ship it, plus my time to meander on over to post office and send you something. And you know, I'm selling like one a week. I'm not too worried about it. But those are the kind of products. And then right now I'm working on a novella called West of the Edge. And it's kind of a day in the life of this science geek who starts out the day in Venice Beach, like loving science and studying all the proportions and, you know, where the Earth is in the cosmos, all those measurements. And over the course of the day, he meets a few people and his perception on the shape of the Earth changes. And the whole novel takes place after a real historical event, which took place on November 7th, 2015, where there was this like trippy sizzler that appeared over the skies of Los Angeles, and everyone saw it. This isn't like a hoax. Like Lena Dunham like posted it on her Instagram, and you know, all the major rags covered it. It was seen as far north as San Francisco, as far south as San Diego, as far east as Arizona, northeast is Reno, Nevada. And this was a real event. And then later the Navy claimed it was a U.S. Trident 5D, Trident 2 5D missile launch, the 156th test launch. But the other 155 nobody ever saw, and they didn't look like trippy, like Dali-esque cosmic sizzlers, like changing colors in the sky. So the whole novel takes place the day after that event. And P is kind of in like P is the name of the character, the main character of the novel. I called him P. It was kind of an homage to Kafka's The Trial, where his protagonist is called K. I just like that idea. One letter. Hold on, my dog's tripping out. Yeah, anyway, so P is kind of in a post-war state. And so the whole novel takes place on November 8th, 2015. And I tried to make it historically accurate. Like what really was the weather that day. Like what, you know, it really, like very Joycean. Like James Joyce would do that. Like he would intersplice like real newspaper headlines in Ulysses. And like Ulysses took place over a single day. And so this is no Ulysses, it's a novella, not an epic novel, but it takes place over a single day. And then it's got a kind of a fantastic finish. I'm still working on it, but you guys check for that. And also I'm going to put that in real book form where you can print on demand and buy it. And I hope you can hear my dog slightly barking in the background. That's just good for podcasting. And yeah, in the future I might so that's called West of the Edge by Frank America. And you guys keep your ears open for that one. Some other stuff is the Magnetic North album was generally well received. Caught a lot of love. Jaronism used it he used the track Stage Set for one of his videos. The song got like 12,000 plays in a day. That was fun. It didn't translate too much to subs. I got like 40 or 50 subs out of that. But it's nice to know that my song reached that far and wide. And also performed stage set at the after party at the International Flat Earth Conference in Denver about a month ago. I went down there and sold some merch at the conference, listened to a couple lectures, and then performed at the after party. And it was well received there too. It was fun to get on stage. And yeah, I met a few people, sold some albums. It went well. You know, I barely broke even on the whole affair. But it's not about the money, sir. My theory is like maybe Magnetic North is an album that in 2 or 3 years can, you know, some young hip hop heads are looking into conspiracy theories and they come across my album and it serves as a primer, you know, that helps them get along their way down that rabbit hole without, you know, in a musical fashion. It's like most of these YouTube videos on conspiracies, just like shitty audio and weird still images just like scrolling across the screen like some fucking 1990s like PowerPoint presentation, and it's just so boring. So I made an album that's got high production quality because I think it changes that perception of the one doing the kind of, in this case, in my opinion, like the disclosure. And I'm definitely not paranoid about the fact that this SUV cop just rolled up outside my house and is now like parked like 300 feet away from me, because I think it would be uber retarded and paranoid to think that there's somehow listening to me talking to my smartphone right now. No, he's probably just eating a donut and making sure nobody speeds by. And good for him. You do your job, sir. I respect you. And I'm going to do my artistic thing, which I am free to do. So that's the kind of stuff I've made over the last 3 years. That's what I have made, and that's what's coming out. If you want to listen to the album on Spotify, just type Frank America into Spotify and it'll come up. And yeah, you know, I talked to my friends about this stuff, the ones that are interested, and not obsessively, but kind of as they bring questions to me. I got one friend that likes to text me kind of randomly. It's almost like it bothers him that I think this way, but he's too curious not to scratch the itch. So I always just am straight up and tell him what I think. And the truth is that I'm not making a claim that I know the shape of the earth or that I know, you know, the truth to every alleged conspiracy. I'm just saying, look, as far as I know, this is what I think. And if I learn something new, that could very well change. So got to stay mentally elastic out here on the front lines of ideology and cosmology. You know, my favorite statement is, as far as I know, the Earth is experientially stationary and optically flat. As far as I know, the Earth is experientially stationary and optically flat. As far as I know, the Earth is experientially stationary and optically flat, accounting for topological shifts in valleys and mountains, and most notable at sea level, hence the name sea level. So, you know, when you say as far as I know, you're being scientific because you're offering those 3 little words make it so that you're not making a claim. If you say, I know the Earth is this, then, you're not allowing for the fact, or like the earth is this, would be different than as far as I know the earth is this. Because that's really what a good scientist does. A good scientist just, is never 100% right, but so far it appears to be this because we haven't seen anything that indicates it isn't. And thus, we'll say it appears to be this. And maybe something will come along that'll show us the earth is a fucking tomato. Or, floats on the back of a turtle. Like, fuck if I know. But, within reason. Obviously, I'm being hyperbolic, and that statement was in jest. But yeah, I just wanted to do this inaugural podcast to, like, kind of get used to just putting some of my ideas out there in a thread. And then in the future, people can leave comments about stuff they'd like me to talk about on subsequent episodes. And if I like those comments, I might cover those issues. I tend to be a little more optimistic, and I tend to enjoy less covering the darker side of the existence. Not that I want to ignore it, I will touch on it if necessary, but I just would rather focus on things that I think are solutions. I like that quote by Terence McKenna. Two quotes, one by Bucky Fuller and one by Terence McKenna. Whether or not they were both like hired operatives aside. McKenna said, stop consuming culture and start creating it. Stop consuming culture and start creating it. And then, which I think is brilliant, because we live in this age where we're just scrolling and consuming and watching and then reading and then listening and consuming and then seeing advertisements, consuming, where it's like, well, what's the opposite of that? It's like create something, create, make an image, make a meme, make a podcast, make a song, write a book, make a video, whatever, create culture. And then, then you insinuate yourself into the fabric of the sociocultural milieu, which is cool. And then the Bucky Fuller quote is, I'm not going to get this verbatim, so forgive me, but if you want to make a problem go away, invent a solution that makes the problem obsolete. In other words, stop just bitching about the problem, just come up with a solution that makes the problem obsolete. And so that's one of my contentions with all these flat earthers out here is that, vilifying NASA and being angry at NASA and like having the Orwellian hour of hate against NASA just makes your blood boil. Maybe it's a phase that on some small level might be healthy to move through, but move through it. Don't just live there. Like, God bless this guy, but that guy in Harvard Square that just yells at everyone that the earth is flat? Like, not a great PR image. And he seems really angry at NASA. And it's like, how can you go about your day with equanimity and poise and kindness if you're feeling hatred in your heart? And so I think this gets into this kind of forgiveness thing, which is that like the higher road is forgiveness, because forgiveness frees you of the fire of hatred in your heart. So let's allege that these people that say we didn't go to the moon, or these people that say that the earth is flat and that they're hiding things from us, let's allege that that's true. Okay, so even if that's true, what are the solutions that would bring those truths for society into a higher place, into a more developed place, into a more scientifically advanced place, into a more cosmologically aware place, as opposed to, just like playing like mashups with Bubbles in Space meets, like the entertainer, you know, do 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 do. Like, sure, that's funny for like a 5-minute meme video. Someone should probably make that. But what is it really doing? And also, like, I'm reminded of my boy. One of my friends is like, "Well, I don't think we went to the moon, but I don't want China to know that," which I thought was a really funny way of looking at stuff in terms of if you are looking at things in terms of nationalism. You know, America's greatest achievement. You know, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. It's like, do you really want to take that off of our mantle? And, you know, I think the truth is self-evident and the truth can't be concealed. And so ultimately, if someone asks me what I truly believe, I'll tell them. But I'm not here to, like, you know, like all these people are like, oh, let's sue NASA, or like, let's go like hold fucking picket signs outside of the space launch. Like, okay, sure. If you really think you're changing the world, or maybe you could just like create something beautiful that makes people less interested in that other stuff. But to each their own, man. I'm definitely not like trying to proselytize. I'm just pointing out this idea that focusing on a problem doesn't make it go away. What makes it go away is coming up with a solution that makes the problem obsolete. So, one second, I'm gonna get my dog again. Yeah, so focusing on that solution-oriented thinking. And, you know, the other thing I like that my boy said about this is talking about the shape of the earth is so 2016. I mean, really, there's more interesting things going on some level, just politically and sociopolitically and geopolitically, and these types of things. Like, you know, I'm watching the House vote live on Fox the other night, just through the YouTubes or whatever. And this shit's fucking interesting. Like, and I do think people should be at least politically informed, not necessarily like super active. Like, you got to do your own thing, which goes back to the like Walden, like, you know, like or Thoreauian, like, man's got to like build his own house. Like, you got to build your own house, and it doesn't necessarily mean you need to get all your own wood and learn how to be a carpenter, but it's like, what is your house? Like, how are you living in your house? If your house is a business and you run it, then you're not beholden to anyone. And I think there's a kind of freedom in that. And I'm working hard to figure out what kind of business I can do that I can run my own shit. Because, no, I don't want to work for anyone. You know, unless they happen to be like a really close friend with a mutual vision for how to live and how to work, then it might be amenable. But ultimately, like, no, I want to run my own business and I want to provide value to the world. It's like this idea is like, you know, like, I don't want to just sit around and watch YouTube videos and bitch about NASA. I want to productively create something that the world can value from, even if I'm just selling, you know, some simple service, like whatever it is. Like, I think it's more valuable to be a fucking house cleaner and go clean people's houses than to just like put out YouTube videos vilifying NASA. Because at least you're fucking cleaning someone's house. You did that. It's like that Bowfinger sketch with Eddie Murphy where he's like, I made sure the napkin was in the bag. I folded it. I got the coffee. Like, I did that. Me. Not just some other thing that I didn't deserve. And it's like, I like that vibe. Like, I want to do something that I did, you know, like, and so granted, yes, I made a documentary. I made an album. I wrote a book, which is a collection of essays, and have another book coming out, which is fiction. So I did that. I made that. I made sure I wrote that. I wrote that song. And, you know, that's almost all kind of in the category of entertainment. And entertainment, even of itself, is kind of like entrainment, or there's almost like, it's like the stuff people do at the end of the day. Like you watch a show, you read a book. Well, I'm kind of interested in creating value for things that happen during the course of a business day. And I've been thinking about all kinds of options. I've got various friends running various businesses, all open to some kind of collaboration. But I'm also thinking about, well, how can I do my own business, and what would it be? And so that's part of my soul and life exploration. But the point is that I want to be in the world, not necessarily of it, but in that shit. I want to run a business. I want to interact, commerce. I do think a lot of these fringe researchers are struggling financially and not necessarily productively contributing to the growth of society. Haranguing people and holding signs and protesting, sure, that's, right, exercise your right to public assembly and freedom of speech. I'm all for that. But what are you going to do that Monday through Friday for fucking 20 years, 30 years? So what are you really doing with your life? What are you building? And that's why I made the products, because I was like, okay, at least I'm not just like out here on the interwebs, just like YouTubing shit till my eyes go red. But like, I'm actively creating culture. I'm producing. And that reminds me, the other thing I made is a short film about the Mandela effect. And, my take on the Mandela effect in a Cliff Notes version is that it's just, is that it's not real. Nothing is changing. But this is just like, basically like a program designed to get people to doubt their memory. Because, an uncertain mind is a feeble mind, and a feeble mind is easily controlled. It gets back to this idea of like, this Matrixian idea of like, well, these are sleepwalkers, these are somnambulists, and some of them don't want to wake up. Maybe they want to be entrained. They want to be, are you not entertained? That was a terrible Gladiator impersonation, but they want to be entertained. They don't want to come out of the little pod. They don't want to take the red pill. And it's also, I think there's an overstanding here. It's like, that's okay. Like, and also the 100th monkey effect. Like, if enough people pop, the grid won't be able to hold down the force of that illumination. And so there may be kind of an epigenetic transference of, popping batteries, popping copper tops, to the effect that society en masse, I don't know, can wake up, quote unquote. I would say become more self-actualized, more aware of where your feet are, what you stand on, who you are. Like, are you a name? Are you a name? Like you own a car. Okay, so you own a name. It doesn't mean you are a name. Are you not like an inexplicable spirit inhabiting a physical body? And it's okay if you just want to eat Cheerios or Cheetos and watch the Kardashians and live vicariously through this faux kind of lifestyle, this kind of veneer of Hollywood, this plastic Tinseltown gloss, and you want to get your thrills through that. And that's okay. You get your emotional release through the nightly news, and you hear about a burglary and you feel fear, and you hear about a corrupt politician and you feel anger, or you hear about, you know, this idea that, are you going to experience your emotions, or is the world going to tell you how to feel? And if you're constantly consuming these other lifestyles, it's not like it's bad to watch the news sometimes. Like, sure, maybe you need to learn about something. You can't just like put your fingers in your ears all day. But there's this other side of it, is like, how is your emotional apparatus like firing? Like, look at the checkout lines in grocery stores. Like, you're walking through, you're like checking out, and like, I do this too. So I'm like looking at like whatever, like Entertainment Weekly or like the Inquirer, just like glancing at the headlines. They're right there in front of you. And it's like whatever celebrity magazines, I forget the names of these shits, but like, so it's like, who's fucking who cheated on who. And we are so infatuated by this. But all these stars in Hollywood, it's like these stars, like the highest achievement of these stars is that they get a star and they put it on Hollywood Boulevard, and people walk over it with their muddy boots, and tourists like photograph them, their star, which is on the street. But it's like the stars aren't on the earth. They're up in the firmament. They're above us. And so this whole psychology of like worshiping these fallen stars who are like immortalized by having their name put in concrete. And I don't know if you've been to like Sunset Boulevard and Hollywood Boulevard where these things are, but it's like disgusting. There's garbage everywhere. It's just full of, you know, debris and pollution, and then there's all these like halogen lights and flashy things, and it's all just like bars and like people sleeping on the street, and it's disgusting. It's really like, I would say, like the nexus of like Babylon 2.0. And yet we have this infatuation, like every checkout line in every grocery store in America, and we're like curious who's sleeping with who in LA. Isn't that weird? To me, it's really weird. Back to this idea of wanting to do something. Like, I would rather get a job as a mailman and bring people letters than just sit around and be some countercultural theorist. I mean, at least I would have to get up, deliver the mail, and people would get the mail, and that would provide them some solace. And like, even I take my hat off to these cops. Like, I don't know if I could do that. I think I have the demeanor for it because I can respect authority and I understand the rule of law. But having to, you know, pull people over, always be possibly uncertain of someone being violent towards you. I mean, it's really a kind of harrowing. So, hats off to the boys in blue. And it doesn't mean there aren't corrupt. In every system, there are corrupt agents and I would say also virtuous agents. Whether you're talking politics, the police, some large corporation like, you know, Amazon or Google or whoever. Which reminds me, I read this interesting article on big tech, and maybe that's like a nice way to kind of, as a theme, to kind of close out this hour, this inaugural hour of my Frank America podcast, which is, let's look at big tech. So big tech right now, you know, came out of Silicon Valley largely in the last 15 years. We got, what do we got? We got Google, Facebook, Amazon, you know, and then like Instagram and YouTube obviously were like acquired. The former by Facebook, the latter by Google. Snapchat, which didn't sell out, which didn't take the buyout. And I guess I just wanted to ask some questions, like, in what way is tech improving our lives? I would say, well, information dissemination and the rate of dissemination, great. But then what's the obverse side to that coin is, well, what kind of information, and is it the correct information? And how do you find the correct information in a sea of disinformation? And then, okay, the convenience of a camera on your phone, the convenience of the convenience of various apps. You got your compass on your phone. You got your voice memo recorder on your phone. And these are helpful. But then you also have this kind of, one could feel almost afflicted with an interest or a desire to scroll these social media websites unendlessly. And it's interesting how these scrolls are infinite. It's like the algorithm is such as, like, I think YouTube, or I mean, like, same for YouTube, but like, I think these ideas, wouldn't it be interesting if there were strictures on the scrolling? Like if you could only scroll Instagram for a minute, then you had to come back in 10 minutes. Now, some people might not like that because don't limit me and how I behave, but I just think it's like, it's almost like this drug. And I just don't know how much it's helping us. But when I tell someone like, oh, like I don't go on Facebook much, or I'm not that interested in that, they're like surprised about you. But yeah, it's the other thing about big tech is like this AI component, and essentially trying to, it's this whole like post-life movement, this live forever, Ray Kurzweil, chip up my consciousness, chip up the humanistic undertow would be like my Joycean turn of tongue for that. But like, is that good? Like, do you want to inhabit a mortal body for the rest of your life? For an infinite life? I think this idea that's why it's good to have this grounding in knowing you're a soul, and that the body is just a vacation for the soul. And I think this dogmatic, reductive materialism, which leads to this obsession with VR, AR, AI, and the extension of life, is very, it goes back to the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's like this great king that's trying to find this water that'll let him live forever, or this idea that even this notion of what vampires are, like they're like the undead that live forever. There's this weird obsession with eternal life, and not eternal life for the soul, but this material idea that the body needs to live forever. I mean, look at these, if you do look at these Hollywood celebs, like, even, like, I'm not trying to knock on him, but like, look at Ray Liotta. Like, he's had more like facial, skin surgery. He looks like a plastic fake version of himself. And I mean, even like Robert Downey Jr. looks like that. Like, but what is driving these celebrities to continue to plaster their face, to seem younger than they are, to not show their wrinkles, to like as if to be aged, to have white hair, to have wrinkles, to be, is not ennobling. I mean, are these not the seasons, the autumnal signals of a life fully lived? Why are we so obsessed with this idea of being young when old age, we're holding the fruits of a life lived and learned? Hold on one second, and I'm going to finish my last 10 minutes. And so, what is tech promoting? Are they not beholden to their stockholders and quarterly profits? We are on the iPhone XSR, or whatever they're calling it now, the XR. Do you think Apple would ever stop making a new iPhone? But at what point is the iPhone that is already made perfectly sufficient for everything a person might need. Are we not fully equipped to take great photos and talk to our friends in other countries, or scroll Instagram with an iPhone 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? And so that gets to this idea, is that if these tech companies, big tech has no spiritual or moral compass, then their goal is to continue to innovate because innovation is good for innovation's sake. But that begs this question, is like, well, what is a healthy amount of innovation? And like, look at the Quakers. The Quakers are like, not to say everyone should like become a Quaker or some shit, but just like as a metaphor. The Quakers they'll use horses as a form of technology to pull their buggies, but they won't drive cars. Okay, so they just like found a nice little niche in terms of the progression of technology, and they threw a stake in the ground. They're like, we're good. We don't need the internet. We're good with this much technology. This much is enough. And what I'm saying is like, I don't think Apple, I don't think Jeff Bezos at Amazon or Apple or any of these companies that are, pushing VR, AR, and AI, I don't think they would ever come to this idea that there could be enough of something. And, I saw a couple of commercials the other day for these new VR goggles. You guys may have seen these commercials. And, they were done like Bud Light style commercials, like kind of bro-y and funny. Not bad in terms of execution. But this idea of like, they're showing us is these people that are wearing blindfolds, and the blindfold has light and sound patterns that they're looking at instead of using their eyes to look around them. And to me, this is like, what a great analogy for Plato's Allegory of the Cave, which is all these people chained in a basement or in a cave, like a dark underground cavern, and there is, a fire behind them that they can't see, and then images put in front of the fire which appear in front of them as shadows on the wall. Now, they're never able to look behind them, so they're not aware that they're looking at a reality that is untrue. And I concede that obviously someone putting on VR goggles knows that's not reality. But the point is that it's enticing them to want to live that way, as if it were reality. Like this one commercial is like a dude chilling in bed with his wife, but he's got his VR goggles on, and it's like a split screen, and it looks like he's talking to his boy, and they're playing like whatever, like World of Warcraft or watching some bro show together or something. And he's like talking to his boy, and then it like cuts back to where he really is with his wife next to him, and she's looking at him with that like WTF kind of eyebrow face. Like, what are you doing? But like, it's funny because he has this joke with the guy who's like synced up with his VR goggles, like his bro at some other place. But so that's kind of like, it's like this idea of like, put these blinders on and see a fake reality and live in it. What, are we all just going to live in Sim City? Like, I'm all for the entertainment of any kind of technology. You want to sit down and play Mario Kart, or you got to put on your VR goggles. But what I'm interested in is like, let's look at what's actually happening. What is the larger trope? Like, all these people playing Fortnite, for hours on end, or you hear about these World of Warcraft binges, people like not leaving their computers to for, days. And it's like, what the fuck is happening? Like, go put your feet on the soil and feel the sun on your brow. And immediately. And the way I'm going to wind out this first episode is that I want to talk about the light of day and your eyes seeing the light of day. The light of day upon your body is like, think about the profundity of that. Like, what the fuck is the sun? God knows, okay? But it feels good and it's warm and it's nice to look at. But all of this other stuff, all these halogen lights, this flickering images on a box that is actually holding no substance but just projecting something. These VR goggles, which are giving you lights and sounds and Vegas style, the feelies by Aldous Huxley, to entrain you and to entertain you, to brainwash you. Sure, everything is fine in moderation. No one's saying like, burn all your TVs, although I don't think that's a bad idea. But we have these little TVs, these smartphones are, walk around with baby televisions in our pocket all day. And we're getting the ads on Instagram. We're getting fed what to buy. They're using the algorithms we're getting fed on Instagram what to buy. We're getting fed the algorithms on Amazon based on our purchase history. Like, the commodification and the leverage of our data being used sometimes is helpful, sometimes is harmful. But either way, it doesn't seem like we're in control of it. And maybe that'll change in the future. The larger point is all of these kinds of like fake lights, like if you go into a bright, if you go into a bright room at night and it's lit up with all these light bulbs, like, sure, that's a great invention. I'm glad that we can click a button and have light. But like, it's not good on the eye. Like, it doesn't feel good on the eye like looking at a fire looks at, or looking at the stars feels like, or looking at the moon feels like. And then obviously in the daytime, the sun. And so that's kind of what I wanted to wind out with, is like, feel the earth around you. This is so hippy dippy. But like, you know what I mean? Like, make a snowball with your hands, or like, just know that when you're outside under the light of the sun, that you're participating in this realm. And be mindful of, Plato's Allegory of the Cave, and just spending your life looking at the puppets on the wall and getting some sort of derivative emotional, mental, spiritual experience from other characters having emotions whom are trained to pretend to have emotions which aren't necessarily their authentic emotions. Now, granted, maybe they're method actors or, trained to pull from past experiences which are veridical, so there's some argument there. But by and large, that this is like an artifice, that these are shadows on the wall, that these people, even if they are pulling from past life experiences, we're pulling from real life experiences to put it into a script, to be cast as a character. And that's not real. And the emotional catharsis you might feel from it, may be physically palpable, but it's not the same emotional catharsis you'd have from really laughing with someone who's really with you, or really crying with someone who's really hurting. And so let's be mindful of these intermediary kind of emotions that are put into us by what we're consuming. And let's at least acknowledge that maybe we enjoy having them sometime. Like, you want to check out and watch Gilmore Girls or binge watch Lost or some shit. Like, nobody's saying don't do that. But just be mindful that those emotional territories, or like Game of Thrones or whatever, are artificial. And that's not where the light of day is. And if they ask you to put on goggles, know how to take them off. So, you've been listening to the Frank America podcast, and I'm Frank. Thanks for listening to me, and God bless. please leave a comment, like, subscribe, share.
Well, I think it looks so ridiculous and impossible.
Yeah.
And you can tell it's real because it looks so fake. We'd have way better CGI if it was fake.
Spaceship, fake ship, stage set, SpaceX, spaceship, fake ship, stage set, SpaceX. Understand, I don't understand shit. All I overstand is the place I'm standing. What I cannot stand is the plans they planning. Cause they just rockets, man, they ain't even landing. Spaceship, fake ship, stage set, SpaceX, spaceship, fake ship, stage set, SpaceX. Yeah, it's just a roadster up in outer space. It's so real, you can tell it's real cause it's fake. Know the deal that they privatize in the parade. My brand is North, when we chat you can call me Frank. Spaceship, fake ship, stage set, SpaceX, spaceship, fake ship, stage set, SpaceX. Taxi ISS is like an Uber to the moon. Flashback 69, tricky dickies on the phone. The Shining was the secret yacht that only Kubrick knew. Now it's Ready Player 1 and 237 is the room. Spaceship, fake ship, stage set, SpaceX, spaceship, fake ship, stage set, SpaceX. What up? Good morning, dog, how you feel? You just woke up from a world, huh, that wasn't real. You woke as fuck, now you opened up to what you feel. So never duck when you rolling up on your next meal. Spaceship, fake ship, stage set, SpaceX, spaceship, fake ship, stage set, SpaceX. Understand, I don't understand shit. All I overstand is the place I'm standing. What I cannot stand is the plans they planning. Cause they just rockets, man, they ain't even landing. Spaceship, fake ship, stage set, SpaceX, spaceship, fake ship, stage set, SpaceX. No snooze, dog.